I don't know what to say. I thought Pokemon Home would be out by now, and if you're watching this video after the release of Pokemon Home because you want the best Pokemon moveset content, then I guess this intro doesn't really mean anything, but I want to get the Hisuian movesets out before Tears of the Kingdom, just in case there's like some weird thing where like that content could get in the way, and if this is after the release of Tears of the Kingdom, then this whole 20-second intro is completely scuffed. So this is how to use Hisuian Samurott. And because Pokemon Home isn't out yet, I really hope they don't mess around with the stats, because like this is the data mine. This is what we have on the current Pokemon data, but with the release of Hisuian Zoroark, they changed a couple of the numbers around, so hopefully this is still accurate. But what's going on here? We have 90, 108, 80, 100 special attacks, so a modernized Pokemon of a starter that still has cursed stats, and then low special defense, higher speed than Samurott, so 70 speed, 108 special attack, 100 attack, so effectively flipping the attack and special attack, and then kind of doing some weirdness with the defense and special defense to give us more speed. Alright, so what else does Hisuian Samurott get? We have a water dark type Pokemon, and adding weaknesses with that dark typing, not really that terrible of a thing because you're not really expecting Hisuian Samurott to stick around for too long. Doesn't have recovery, doesn't have like built-in durability or setting up durability. It really just seems like you want to be a wall breaker because 85 speed is kind of a sweeping speed now because Generation 9 is so ugly. Sharpness ability also spices things up because we can just run a wall-breaking cut style Hisuian Samurotts where like Life Orb, 50% boosted super effective hit, or Terra extra damage on something can get really nasty. Now I have Jolly Nature on the speed, and I guess you can go Adamant because you want to get like the most efficiency out of your nature stats. Also just 10% damage on top of all the boosting we're already doing is pretty nutty, but I just feel like at 85 speed, you fall into something weird. Like you want to make sure you're just kind of catch-alling everything and being that wall breaker because you're not going like hyper speed sweeper. So in case there's like a weird EV spread on a higher speed Pokemon, or if there's a higher speed tier Pokemon that's greeting with the adamant nature, you can kind of take advantage of that here. And then you're just kind of catching everything, and everything you catch with this Jolly Nature and then hit on these kinds of things is just going to be pretty good. So I think that's maybe the play. If it's not working, if you're still getting outsped, if you're not finding the KOs you need to, depending on the meta, Adamant Nature works, and there we go. Now, what about the signature move, Ceaseless Edge? This is where things get weird, because looking at comparable moves, like, okay, we have the Aqua Cutter at 70, but it can't be higher because sharpness and then, like, boosting into that. It's still better than a Liquidation because base power and stuff on the sharpness. And then I think that means you're afforded the Terra Dark, because you go Terra Dark Ceaseless Edge, and you start getting the damage down, boosted by sharpness, and then it's just negligible compared to the Aqua Cutter. And then, like I said, the plan is you just want to hit super effective hits with the Sharpness Life Orb on Pokemon you're faster than, complete wall break, try to win the game. Seems like you have some niche viability here on the Hisuian Samurott. As for the effects of Ceaseless Edge, we have 90% accuracy. That could screw you over, and that just kind of sucks for no reason. And then setting a layer of spikes. So spikes does 1/8, 1/6, and then 1/4 to the opposing Pokemon, depending on the layers on switch-in. However, like this lower base power, like it would have been just better to have this just be like a 75 power dark stab move that gets the sharpness proc, and maybe that's all that matters. Because it seems like you're just kind of diverting that damage, that 1/8 of an opponent's health somewhere else, but the opponent has to switch in and also be affected by the spikes, which doesn't really seem to happen that much. And if it's a case where like you need to KO the opposing Pokemon in front of you, or else things get really bad, then it just kind of feels useless. But there is maybe the dream scenario where like you outspeed the opposing Pokemon, Ceaseless Edge, survive the hit, Ceaseless Edge, that's a KO, and now you have 2 layers of spikes for a decent amount of time. The thing about entry hazards is that they're complete noob traps. Stealth Rock sucks, Spikes sucks, spinning and then having like defogging also sucks because like that's its own micro meta game and you can't really afford those move slots anymore. So that's just kind of Timmy noob trap gameplay, but in a 6v6 where you're going to get more mileage and more usage out of this, there's also going to be a higher chance that maybe there's a defog or some kind of spinning or something, even though it's all bad. But if you get these to stick, then maybe that kind of matters. But that also means that, like, you have to run Hisuian Samurott to accomplish this, where there could just be a better Pokemon to run on your team, or even a better entry hazard Pokemon, you know, like the Fortress that sits in, maybe depending on, like, the state of the National Dex when Skarmory comes out, it's just, like, Stealth Rocks, Spikes, Roost, and then you just have, like, one of the more durable tanks in the game. Whereas Hisuian Samurott, it can get a 1-for-1 plus, maybe the Spikes does something, usually it doesn't, and then depending on the rest of the game state, maybe you just get like outsped, revenged, and KO'd, and that's kind of it for the Hisuian Samurott. So there's like some weird interactions here, but there is a dream scenario that's not common that actually sounds good on the Ceaseless Edge, and because of the sharpness boosting, like, you have it, and you can Terra into it and not lose on the Aqua Cutter, so I guess that's going to be fine. My thought on Ceaseless Edge is that, like, Glimmora gets Toxic Spikes for free, and it doesn't matter. Glimmora does not have an ability, and it's still a super busted Pokemon because you go modest 130 special attack with this weird speed creep, wall breaking kind of thing, and then you just kind of one-shot everything with choice specs and, like, potential Terra types and wild coverage, and then Glimmora's just busted, but Toxic Spikes never matters. And, like, Toxic Spikes is much worse than the Spikes because it can just get cleansed by Poison-type Pokemon, Steel-type Pokemon don't care, the Flying Levitate Pokemon don't care, so, like, Toxic Spikes only accidentally works, like, 4% of the time, and has yet to affect the outcome of a battle for me in any meaningful way, just in case it, like, accidentally works and poisons a Pokemon. So these secondary effect entry hazards still not really showing too much value in Generation 9. I don't think it's going to be, like, that crazy for Hisuian Samurott, but we're going to see how it plays out. As for, like, another moveset on the Hisuian Samurott, just kind of the same idea I had for regular Samurott, where, well, if you Focus Sash into Torrent on a Swords Dance setup, anticipating just getting, like, one shot, and I guess you can even sacrifice the Adamant Nature and then go for something that's going to make you more frail, just to make sure, like, you get hit as hard as possible to activate the Torrent. So I mean, like, Lonely Samurott is even an idea. Max out the speed, get the attack, and then the whole plan is, like, Swords Dance, Terra Water, Torrent activates, and we actually just have more power. So Samurott 100 attack, Hisuian Samurott 108 on the attack, same idea, just better. More speed for, like, follow-up liquidation. Stab Sucker Punch is a thing, in case the Aqua Jet is resisted, and then, like, you still do crazy damage. And then looking at the damage calculations, which are the most important part of the video, I don't understand why people leave just because there's a lot of boring text on the screen. Like, this is where you absorb all of the data, apply it into your games, and then just get bigger brained and better at Pokemon. And that's kind of like the whole idea behind it, is like, you need to lose, absorb this passive information, apply it to matchups that your opponents don't know, and then you just win. Either way, we have, like, how this kind of goes. So we have Bashful Nature, just kind of simulating being a Jolly Nature or something, which doesn't really work into the Iron Bundle. Just kind of like showing some kind of matchup-y stuff that could happen. If you go Terra Dark, you do remove your weakness on the Freeze Dry, so we can see Ice Beam still gonna hurt our 90 hit point, 65 special defense. That is not great. That also means that Hydro Pump is gonna be a KO, so you don't have, like, some kind of surprise win here on this. Sacred Sword does have the super effective KO hit. Ceaseless Edge does not have the neutral, even on the Terra Dark, so it's mostly about finding those super effective hits. If we just kind of fill in some kind of other Pokemon, we can see, like, what our damage looks like, and it's kind of that, where it's like, alright, into bulkier Pokemon on, like, with the 90s or something, not finding KO, but getting a solid amount of damage, and that could also just be the case for the Adamant Nature, where it might swing a few things. Super effective Sacred Sword is going to mow down even bulky Pokemon. Now, a problem with Hisuian Samurott is finding the good applicable matchups of common meta Pokemon to see where it just kind of meshes in. And I know that, like, adding in Hisuian Pokemon and also the starter Pokemon and, like, national decks and home shenanigans could get pretty crazy and unpredictable. But for the most part, it's just like, yeah, the Pokemon's either faster and has, like, a super effective hit that gets kind of spooky, or just kind of feels too bulky for Hisuian Samurott to deal with. But there's also a few matchups that shows Jolly is what you want. If there's a greedy Adamant Baxcalibur, or if there's, like, some weird bulk investment, just kind of not respecting the 85 Jolly max speed because it's kind of the most stupid, outrageous thing, then yeah, you just hit him with the Life Orb, super effective Sacred Sword, and that's it. There's also weird potential trading scenarios where sometimes you survive the Glaive Rush just in case it's, like, Jolly, not Focus Sash, and then you die to your own Life Orb burn. But I mean, like, trading 1-for-1 on a wall-breaking Excalibur that could give you problems, maybe that's fine. Same thing on the Dragonite. Let's go find a good Dragonite, because there's a million of them. Dragonite is also some kind of matchup. Now, they're not really running as much Jolly, but by being Jolly yourself, you are covering for that potential scenario. And then, like, the numbers look kind of weird. So, unless it's Choice Band, Wall-Breaking Outrage, you're not going to get one-shot. Extreme Speed Terra Normal just sucks to begin with. Now, it will two-shot you, but still, like, if they're doing that, they're just throwing the rest of the game, which is pretty nice. And then Ceaseless Edge can find the 2-hit KO, so there could be, like, a lot of weird stuff going on. It's where, like, Dragonite comes in, goes for the Dragon Dance, you hit it for 40%, and then you can just two-shot it on the Ceaseless Edge, and that also means that the spikes will be set, and I guess that's something. However, because of the damage and shenanigans, it looks like you go down to your own Life Orb burn again, but you are coming out with a 2 spikes advantage, so like a 1-for-1 plus, just a different kind on the Hisuian Samurott, and it works into some Pokemon. Now, what about the base Samurott moveset that I talked about, where, like, you go Focus Sash, Adamant, Torrent, Swords Dance setup into just kind of spamming Aqua Jets, and at the 85 speed, there's, like, less things that can respond to you with its own priority or Sucker Punch or something, so this could also just kind of work. You're doing a significant amount to the Sylvally, and this is on priority, so it stings. And it one-shots Chien Pao, so neutral 80-80, you just kind of win on priority. And then you also have, like, still some decent wall breaking because you're just +2 running other moves. And then to end the video, we can just do some math, because it's kind of weird. Like, math is just an obvious objective thing, but the way that, like, Pokemon interacts obscures it just enough to where people don't really realize what's going on. So, like, Liquidation, not really crazy on the coverage. What about Sacred Sword? Especially if we have, like, a super effective hit on that Sacred Sword. Well, remember, this is Torrent, not Sharpness, so we are cutting some damage there. And then Liquidation is just more than a super effective Sacred Sword. And it's way more because we are getting the 50% boost, we have Stab, and then we're also going for that Terra Water on top of it. And it's just a silly amount of damage. So the only time Sacred Sword is better is for 4 super effective hits, or when Liquidation is resisted and Sacred Sword is a super, like a Water Dark type Pokemon, which is kind of ironic. But if that's, like, not common enough to actually matter, then yeah, Liquidation just there for, like, the further Giga wall breaking now that you're set up. Oh, and I forgot to talk about Razor Shell. So Razor Shell is boosted by Sharpness, which means we're just going to be getting more damage than if we're going with the Aqua Cutter. And it's kind of arguable as to which one is better, because, like, higher critical hit ratio doesn't mean, like, you're going to be critting all of the time. And it's not like you're going to be adding a crit item to maybe boost into that. But RNG is pretty nice. But then the weird thing is, you're getting effectively the same damage. Crit deals 50% more damage, and a -1 Pokemon is going to receive 50% more damage. But it's not instant, where it's like, okay, the Aqua Cutter happens, and you're getting that damage on demand. But the Razor Shell is a chance to ramp that damage. And then it's also kind of like against defensive stacking Pokemon, what's better, that if they're going for something like a Curse and you're kind of offsetting that and trading and healing and sustaining and trying to get an edge with Razor Shell, you might win out against that Pokemon. But if they're already set up, or they're trying to set up, it could just be that the damage from the Aqua Cutter with, like, all of this to where Stab, Sharpness, Aqua Cutter getting a crit onto something, if that just ignores the defenses the Pokemon's coming in with or already has set up, then that could just be, like, what you need. You're fishing for that crit, higher chance, wins the game, especially on follow-up. Like, Aqua Cutter crits, and then you just hit something else and you're good to go. But also, Sacred Sword just kind of ignores that. And then that kind of goes back into the core idea of the moveset, where, like, Terra Dark Ceaseless Edge is going to be your main damage, but you've got other Pokemon that might want to Terra and get more out of it, depending on the game. So if Terra is not available for the Hisuian Samurott, then trying to get as much damage as possible with the Razor Shell could be the better move, and there could be scenarios where, like, Razor Shell, Defense Drop, Razor Shell KO exists where just, like, 2 Aqua Cutters doesn't, and it's a higher chance in, like, trying to fish for a crit on one of these moves. So, yeah, it's kind of weird there. I guess Razor Shell wins out. And that's kind of it. So, hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.